They didn't invade, they invested. No army, no warning, just concrete, contracts and quiet. First it was the roads, then the buildings, then the cars, the houses, the ports, the land. All of it signed away piece by piece. Most never noticed. While the population focused on survival, the terms were being set. While the country waited on progress, the future was quietly sold. This isn't fiction. This is Jamaica. This is now. Inside the Caribbean, the China Files. A 9-part investigation into influence, ownership, and the slow disappearance of control. Not by force, but by design. It began with a handshake in 1972. Michael Manley's administration officially established diplomatic ties between Jamaica and the People's Republic of China. At the time, the move was seen as bold. Jamaica, a small post-colonial state, aligning itself with a rising communist power in the middle of the Cold War. In the beginning, it was ceremonial. Cultural exchanges, the odd trade agreement, mutual respect. China was far away and felt even further. But by the 2000s, that relationship had matured, and things started moving faster than anyone expected. Highway 2000 was the first wake-up call. A massive multi-million-dollar project funded and built by Chinese state-owned firms. The Jamaican public saw smoother roads, faster commutes and new bridges. What they didn't see was the fine print. A decades-long concession agreement, Chinese management of toll roads, and repayment terms tied to foreign debt. At first, it seemed like development. But who was really benefiting? Chinese construction companies imported their own labor, often with language barriers and cultural walls that kept them isolated. Local Jamaican workers were hired only in limited numbers, mostly for lower-paying roles. Meanwhile, Chinese companies brought their own engineers, their own materials, and even their own heavy equipment. The money didn't circulate in Jamaica, it went back to China. By 2013, Chinese state-owned enterprises were involved in almost every major infrastructure project on the island, from the North-South Highway to government buildings, ports, and downtown Kingston revitalization plans. The loans kept flowing, so did the promises. At least $2.1 billion USD in financing from Chinese banks had been funneled into Jamaica between 2002 and 2020. And with every loan came a contract, a repayment plan, and often a stake in the project itself. Then came the shift. The influence was no longer just about roads and buildings. It was creeping into the economy, trade, and even the daily lives of ordinary Jamaicans. Walk into any wholesaler or plaza across Kingston or Montego Bay. The goods? Predominantly Chinese imports. From hardware to household items, Chinese products dominate the shelves. Cheap, plentiful, and often lower in quality. Local manufacturers can't compete on price. Many simply folded. At the ports, import data tells the story even clearer. China is now one of Jamaica's largest trading partners, with imports from China quadrupling between 2005 and 2020. But it's not a balanced trade. Jamaica exports very little back. This is a one-way economic street. China sells and Jamaica buys. The automobile industry followed the same pattern. Brands like BYD, Changan, and Great Wall Motors flooded the Jamaican market. They undercut the Japanese dominance by offering cheaper vehicles with flashy features. But the trade-off? Spare parts are hard to find. Maintenance is limited to specific dealerships. When something goes wrong, owners are often stuck, with no option but to go back to the dealer and pay premium. In 2017, a government-backed plan surfaced to create a Chinatown district in downtown Kingston. It was branded as a cultural initiative, a place for trade, food, and community. But the public response was swift and cold. Many Jamaicans felt it was tone-deaf, another symbol of Chinese overreach, this time dressed up as multiculturalism. The plan was shelved. That didn't stop China, it just changed the method. Instead of a physical Chinatown, influence began flowing in more subtle ways. Scholarships for Jamaican students to study in China, equipment donations to hospitals and police departments, free Mandarin classes hosted through Confucius Institutes, training programs for local civil servants. All of this looked generous. And maybe it was. But behind the gifts was a pattern. Strategic influence disguised as friendship. And it wasn't always clear who was setting the terms. By 2020, concerns were quietly growing. Media reports hinted at a lack of transparency in Chinese contracts. Opposition politicians occasionally raised red flags. But nothing stuck. The government defended the deals as necessary for growth, a win-win for both countries. But was it? In several high-profile projects, local contractors complained of being locked out. Jamaican business owners said they were treated like spectators on their own soil. And with more Chinese companies bidding and winning on major tenders, many Jamaicans wondered if the playing field was still fair. Then there was the issue of land. Some infrastructure deals included land leases lasting 50 years or more. In a few cases, Chinese companies were granted use of portlands and industrial zones for extended periods, effectively removing those assets from national control for decades. Technically, Jamaica still owned the land, but functionally, control was gone, and with the leases buried deep in legal jargon, the average Jamaican had no idea. At this point, you start to ask, how much influence is too much? And how did Jamaica, a country that once prided itself on independence, become so dependent? This wasn't a war. There were no tanks, no coups, no uprisings, just contracts, quiet deals, and debt. Some call it economic diplomacy. Others call it a form of modern colonialism. Either way, the result is the same. China now plays a significant role in shaping Jamaica's economy, infrastructure, and future. And the people? Many are just now waking up to the scope of it all. Because one day, a generation of Jamaicans may find themselves living in prefab homes built by foreign hands, commuting on toll roads managed from overseas, and shopping in stores where every label is printed in another language, and they'll call it normal. The silent hand doesn't break the door down, it just waits until no one's watching. Then it turns the lock. So now you know how it started. The roads, the loans, the quiet handshakes. But that was just the surface, because in episode 2 we're digging into the part they really don't want to talk about. The land, who owns it, who controls it, and what it means when a country leases away key pieces of itself for 50 years or more, just to settle a debt. They called it development, but when you read the fine print it starts to look a lot more like a sale. Episode 2, Land for Loan. Did Jamaica sell itself? Watch it right now by clicking the box on the screen, or check the link in the description, or in the pinned comment below. This is Inside the Caribbean, the China Files, and this is just the beginning.